Hey, everybody, welcome to another exciting episode of Greenwood, the podcast, your number one go to spot for all things culture and current events. I'm your guest host, James, along with Angelia and Tanya, and of course, my main man, Flex. It's been a while since we've been together for this show, and it's been a while since I've been on the show as a guest host. So I just want to give everybody a little time to, say what's up to everybody. Let's start with you, Tanya.
Hey everyone, I am Tanya. Some know me as Tranquil T. Hello.
I'm Angelia. Most people know me as Ladybug. I'm kind of new to the crew. Flex, we can't hear you.
Of course, because I had the mute button on, but
That's all right.
I've only done this like a million times. My bad. So, hey, another episode of Greenwood podcast. I'm your boy Flex, kind of filling in where I get in. So, but real quick, we'll jump to this our intro, then we'll come back and get the show started.
Okay, so I'm going to reiterate here. It looks like we lost James. I guess he'll jump back in. I'm going to reiterate here why we're here today. We're here first at a new time, this Tuesday at 7:30. Sorry, guys, we started a little late tonight. But I also wanted to let you guys know that we're going to actually be bringing new topics. We want to discuss the things that you guys love. And you can always find us on Facebook, LinkedIn, IG, TikTok, pretty much any platform you're on, you'll be able to find us there. Tonight, we have something special that we're going to talk about. And we'll be talking about, and it's a two-part section tonight, and it's going to be on the murder and lynching, modern-day lynching of Ahmaud Arbery, and the Kyle Rittenhouse trial, which has recently just closed. Everyone's just closed out, and we're waiting on a verdict as of right now. And so I think as we go through, we'll kind of touch on the emotional effects of it, and we'll touch on other aspects of the trial as well. James, as soon as he patches back into us, will kind of lead us into how he feels about, where we've gone and where we are now in the trial.
Yeah.
First, I think we may want to kick it to Flex.
Yeah.
You want to tell us a few things about tonight?
Yeah, you
Flex?
just to piggyback on what you talked about. I just want to talk about the emotional effect of it, and we'll get more into it, of course, when the show comes on. But
right.
We before the show, we talked about how damaging this mindset is to our society as a whole, and it's not just the offender's mindset. I look at the laws that they passed that make it okay to kill somebody in the name of self-defense. So,
modern day lynching and lynching with the side of it's my civil duty. I have to protect my I'm protecting home, I'm protecting property.
Yeah.
And while we wait, we might as well just go ahead and kind of hop into some of the timeline for the Ahmaud Arbery incident. Basically, we're dealing with a young man who's an avid runner. Good evening, Bernie. Who's an avid runner, decided to take a jog. He took that jog. There are homes in the area that are under construction, and those homes in that area have countless visitors at all times on the property, looking at the property. You have children. You have surveillance video that was actually provided by the homeowner that said that he had never had anything really come up missing, and the stuff he did have come up missing, he thought a white couple did. So then you have our three defendants who decided to roll up on the property. They felt like he was the suspect. They felt like he was suspicious, and they felt like they had the right to stop him. And it led to the death of a bright young man. It really did.
You know what's crazy though is when I purchased my home in this neighborhood, I just thought about all the construction that was going on, and I frequently went inside the different homes just to check them out as they were being constructed and erected. So, and I remember how they tried to demonize him, like he was in doing something wrong, and I'm just like, wow, man.
Do you know how many empty homes I've walked into?
Yeah.
You know? But a lot of times when we do it under the guise of a neighborhood where people look a lot more like us. You know, as opposed to you being in this rural town of Georgia. If anybody's been to Brunswick, Georgia, you know what it looks like, right? Yeah. Okay. So if we understand that, you know, everybody thinks, oh, racism doesn't exist, and that was back in the 50s and the 60s weren't that long ago, people.
Right.
Let's
My parents are still alive, and they went through that right there.
Right.
But, you know, the thing is, we talked about also how important it is. I think it's right to be angry at what happened, but it's also important that we take a moment afterwards and heal. And I think Tanya, she brings an important part of that with her organization, How Much. So I just want to kick it to her and let her talk about the importance of healing.
Oh, thank you. So, you know, healing is integral to our growth and to the state of our community, right? Anger is a part of that process of healing. So with healing, it comes with, it's a process of alleviating or attempting to alleviate the physical illness. And it comes from the power of the mind, right? So there are stages to healing. You acknowledge that there's a pain or there's an infliction. And with that comes anger, grief, and maybe sometimes denial. Yeah. When it comes to the community aspect of it, we try to bargain with society of why things are happening to us. But we never clearly get answers. So therefore, healing really never just truly takes place. So when events take place, you go through your depression stage, you go through PTSD. And with events like this that's going on with the Ahmaud Arbery case, you know, we took a hard blow. And with that, you know, of course, we need to heal. So how do we go through our healing process? Why is healing important? Like I said before, the health of our community depends on if we heal or not.
That's right.
Healing comes with our economic progress. So we have to accept that we don't have a fair hand. We have to forgive. We have to move forward with intentions to prevent or alleviate the pain from occurring again. That takes us coming together as a community to come up with a strategic plan of action on how we can come together and heal by taking one step at a time. How can we find ways to be quiet in chaos and be strategic at the same time? Because we all know sometimes certain things or certain actions doesn't cause healing. It causes us to further pain, to be in further pain. Yeah. So it's very important for us to heal and find ways to come together as a community to heal in times like this.
All right, we're definitely going to work on healing later, but today let's go back to talking about these two cases. I want to start with the Rittenhouse case, and actually we'll talk about both the Rittenhouse case and the Arbery case. And I want to jump back to something that Angelia was just touching on a while back, which pertains to race. I want to know your thoughts on how race plays a factor in both of these trials. Let me give you a little information. Let's start with let's start with the Rittenhouse case, right? So let's talk about the judge, Judge Bruce Schroeder.
Bruce Schroeder.
He
Disease looking Bruce Schroeder, who has the background of, I mean, I'm saying he looked like he came right out the crypt, and he just spewed racism all over the courtroom. He talked about Asians. He talked about how that he didn't want Asian food shipped in on the barge. And, you know, you can't call the victims. You can only call them arsonists. So this is what we're dealing with on Jump.
Right.
And to answer your question, I'm sorry, James, and to answer your question on why race is so important in this, even though it doesn't matter that the gentlemen that were killed were white, what matters is that in the beginning, this is all about the justice system and how it does not represent and work for us. That is why the racial, everybody says, I don't understand how this has any racial undertones considering both the victims were white. It's like, no, they were actually fighting for the rights of Blacks.
Yeah.
Right. A lot of people forget why they were protesting in the first place, because of the murder of a Black man. But let's talk about specifically some of the actions of Judge Schroeder in this particular case. One thing that you just mentioned was him saying he's not going to allow the victims to be called victims. He also, you know, just recently dismissed the gun charge, which most people felt the way the case is going, that was going to be the only thing that could really stick. Also, even not allowing the prosecutor to use the Zoom feature on the iPad to zoom in and focus on the video, and his reasoning for it. We can touch that too. And also, the most important critical part to me was the 2 times that he made the jurors leave so that he could argue with who? The prosecutor.
Yeah.
I felt like the prosecutor, he's fighting the defense and the judge at the same time.
Right.
What are your thoughts, Tranquility?
No, he's definitely seems to be one-sided and side on the side of the defendant. It was clearly, as he outlined some of the things that he wanted to have emitted early on, it was not in the favor of the prosecutor at all.
Yeah. And I think it's when you think about it, like he literally set a whole tone for the case. And I'm thinking like for that level of injustice to go on, meaning what Rittenhouse, whatever his name is, what he did, like you have to have people at all phases, at all levels in the system to get him off. And there is nothing more important, in my opinion, than the judge. Judge will influence the jury. You know, you can get real, you know, jurists come in and they try their best to be objective, but you know, the judge is really setting a tone. So I think it was intentional. I really believe that. I don't think it's just, hey, he's trying to keep order in his court. I think what he's doing is very intentional.
Well, the jury selection was intentional. They started out with the 20 jurors that they started out with, and then even those 20 jurors lacked any people of color. There's one Hispanic that was on the trial, and then the rest are whites. So, I mean, you know, that is intentional. You know what I mean? And just like he sits in the courtroom and he's, you know, people said, oh, that's a patriotic song, but his cell phone rings and he's playing that, and that's the anthem for the Trump rallies. You know, I think all these things are intentional. And to touch on, and James talked about the dismissal of the gun charge, even though that gun charge carried a misdemeanor. We are looking at times in this country where we are suffering from mass shootings by young white men across the country. Yeah. And you mean to tell me that the gun charge is one of the things that you dismiss, when there needs to be a message sent to young white males that we cannot personally, you know, carry open weapons because of the climate. And stop me, you know, I don't want to offend anyone, but I'm just saying, we have an epidemic here in front of us in this country. And that is, you know, along with racism, it's mass shootings.
Yeah. And you talked about just the key points you picked up. The FBI released like 3 or 4 years ago where they talked about our number one threat was not international terrorism. It was domestic.
Yeah, exactly.
So, I mean, to your point.
I'm really surprised that charge didn't stick.
I'm not, just because I'm surprised that, I don't know, maybe I shouldn't say. Go ahead, Tanya.
I know I got a question. Do you think the ringtone had something to do with who he was as a person, his character? I don't know if you guys are aware that the ringtone, his phone went off, the judge phone went off during session. So, and it was the God Bless the USA. It was the song that was played during Donald Trump's rally.
Hmm.
So, do you think that set a tone as well of who he
Yes.
was as a person?
I
Yes.
think it's a reflection of Kenosha. Let's
Yeah.
talk about the demographic of Kenosha.
Okay.
Kenosha is 77% white, 10% black. And like Angela referenced earlier, you have 11 white jurors, and for optics, they continue to say one person of color. But we know that that person isn't our
Yeah.
ethnicity. And
Exactly.
and
He's
so
Hispanic.
and honestly, I think that's why, I mean, he felt totally comfortable doing that random selection of selecting his jurors out of the 18 that were available because that town is definitely, it's in his favor.
So why is that an issue? Why is the jury selection for those that don't know? Why is it?
Representation.
Yeah.
And if you
Representation.
and just to tie the two together, the judge in the Ahmaud Arbery case actually said that there was a racial intention to
Racial
not
bias.
have jurors of color. So that is why that's important because it even transcended over into Ahmaud's case.
Yeah.
And
that's what.
in Ahmad's case, we only have one black juror,
It's a
and
black male.
they kept dismissing all the defense kept the defense kept dismissing all of the other possible jurors that were black because of racial bias. And then in Glenn County, that's 69% white, 26% black.
That's right.
Yeah. I'm gonna let James, if you don't mind, man, you can take this question right here or this comment, man, and then we can expound on it.
Let's see. Vigilantes always rise when the white majority feel threatened about losing the power. This is why 17 states have already passed bills to suppress the black vote. Yeah, I mean, like when you feel like the law is on your side, you feel empowered. I definitely agree with that too.
Yeah, especially the whole passing voting laws, real time. Like you see the turnout was historic in Atlanta,
Right.
or in Georgia in general, and immediately after they went into what can they do for the next go around to suppress the vote.
And the governor of Georgia, Brian Kemp, he is responsible for a lot of redistricting certain areas to keep certain political people of color. They would go out and apply so that they could run for office, and then they would kind of redistrict and design the areas so that person would no longer qualify based off their current address. Brian Kemp is definitely the devil.
And the reason this all matters is because, again, you're talking about judges that are elected, especially in the local elections. We get a huge turnout in the national election, but it's not the same when you talk about the local election. So that's who are making the state laws, those who are controlling when you can vote, how long the polls are open, how many drop-off locations you can have. All these things are made, during the what they call midterms, not during the national election. So just showing how that ties into the topic of the day.
Okay. Now let's switch over. Like we're talking about how race is playing a role in these trials. So let's focus onto the Arbery case, right? And let's focus on the lawyer in the case. So far, what are some of the things that you guys feel that he's done that have been blatantly racist? For example, his request for restrictions on black preachers because he feels they're intimidating the jury. What are your thoughts?
Jesse Jackson, when the mother wept, I just feel like, to me, I feel like that is another form of, it's a form of voice suppression, emotional suppression, because again, I feel like as Blacks, we aren't always allowed to express our emotion, our distrust, or even have support, right? So if you are able to remove those things from a person, and I think this is definitely a question for Ms. Tranquility here, this affects us emotionally. Please tell us. how that, you know, us and our voices and our, you know, our emotions and our support just being suppressed. Like, to come and say that the Reverend Jesse Jackson, how many pastors does this family need?
Black
First of all, you dehumanize the family by making them a part of just a end result of your conversation. This family. No, not this family who tragically lost their child, but this family. How many does this family need? Just as many as it takes.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you guys had a chance to look at the audience or the people that's sitting supporting the trial. It's not a lot of Blacks, right? So I feel like they're saying that this one person presence fill up the room with his existence is too much for them to bear.
Yes.
I want him out. That's what I feel. And so if we can break up and divide the support that they get, we can break them down. And we know that has been a trend in the African American community. If we break up the support, we can break them down mentally.
Right.
If we break them down mentally, they're already defeated. So I think it's just an attempt to break down that side. So that's
I agree. I agree, and I'll just add too. While that's going on, there's still some self-responsibility there with us. Too many times I think we jump on it because it's the headline, it's the hot topic. But then when it's gone, you know, if the news is not talking about it, where is our interest in these type of topics? And I think we're responsible, you know, whether it's a podcast, whether it's a community organization, church leaders, you know, it almost makes me sick at the stomach to see how disconnected our religious leaders are to real world issues. But I think it is incumbent on all of us to make sure that we're staying engaged, staying in the know, so that we're doing what we can and should be doing to make these issues stay at the forefront. Because again, we know that if we don't make it an issue, it'll go. And then what happens, you know, the next time that someone loses their life in a tragic way, then we're starting from scratch again.
So I know we've been crossing two, but I had a question. So this is a trivia for all of us.
Mm-hmm.
Because we're dealing with two racial situations and two different trials, does anybody know what person said there are not enough Jim Bobs on the jury?
Mm-hmm.
Where did that come from? See, most people don't even know it. Pick one. No, it actually came from Ahmaud's case.
Ahmaud's case. That sounds just like him.
Yeah.
For sure.
It's one of these situations that we're dealing with. Is this Facebook user said these two cases are more important than people think. They will both set precedents. Those are high up are really watching the things that are taken and being shifted to things we must write to the editors, write to our senators, write to those in power, and put the pressure on. Yeah, we need to put pressure on, and having more conversations like this helps. You know.
But honestly, at this point, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say I hate for us to.
But honestly.
One second, James.
Right,
1 second.
Go ahead.
No, but you know, I was saying I just really be the example of things like this. We are used as the group of people to be made the example of, you know, and it's to a point where we are tired of being the example. Stop using us to make a point. Now we're being made make a point in the public eye of exposing racism. Now we are always used to those people as if, you know, we're like punching bag. We're continually being the punching bag in societal issues. And it's sickening.
And then expected to be quiet and be forgiving. And I believe in that. But you know what? Forgiveness doesn't take away from accountability and responsibility. So I think when they conflate those issues, it's intentional. But you know, I get a good one in there now and then. But it's on you, James.
And what I want to say is this: like, I understand what, you know, the user said in the comment that Angela just wrote, and a lot of that is true. But at this point, it's too late, because at this point we have to focus on the laws the way they are. And so at this point, it's important for us we can't continue. You know, I say it all the time. We have to stop waiting on a white savior. We have to save ourselves. We can't wait on white people to save us. And what I mean by that is, Like, you know, we have to take advantage of the opportunities that are available to us to play a bigger role in things the way they are right now. What do I mean by that specifically? I'm talking about voting in local elections, something that you just touched on earlier, Flex. Like a lot of people focus on the national election, and then on the off years, they, you know, but a lot of people can't tell you about the local things going on in their area. We got to remember, judges are elected officials. And then the other thing is this: jury duty. You know, so many people, I've talked about this on before. So many people like to quote Martin, be like, I rippity rip, and think it's cool to avoid jury duty, but then be the first people mad when you have 11 white jurors deciding on the fate of justice for one of our own. So we have to take it upon ourselves to make sure that we're showing up for jury duty, make sure that we are voting in local elections and voting for people that share our same vested interests. Because again, we have to use the power that's available to us. We can't continue to just push it off and say, that person needs to do something, and we need to write that person so they can do something. We need to go march in front of that person's office so they can do something. No, we need to do something.
And we need to also learn how to take the wheel. This judicial system needs more people of color. Yeah. And so we need to also be better representations of ourselves. We need to make sure that we actually put people in those places so that they can run those races.
Exactly.
We need more Black judges. We need more Black mayors, like the mayor of Little Elm. We need more people representing us.
Yeah. And to this point right here, we're talking about the local elections. This even goes even further down to the school board. It says we must go back to grassroots and stop talking and begin showing up to the city council meetings, school board meetings, and everything. And if you just watch what's been happening in here, COVID, when these local towns are having town halls
and mask mandates, mask mandates, and how violent some of them got violent.
Yeah. So you know? they pushed their agenda for the wrong. I mean, in my opinion, for what was wrong. But you know, when it comes to us showing up at the schools, especially to protect our kids, we're not there overwhelmingly, and I'm guilty of it myself. So, you know,
I don't have small ones, but I feel for all the parents that are suffering from critical race theory issues that are going on in the school system. That's another thing. Those are topics that a lot of parents, because they work, they don't have the time to come in and be more informed about. But this is a mission here on Greenwood, the podcast. And one of our missions is going to be to make sure that we try to give people the correct information, and that we give them more understanding. So that is a duty. We have a duty here. And when you're on a podcast, it's not just whether or not the baby is still with the current baby mama. Yeah. It is whether or not, you know, what's going on in your community. What would you like us to touch on? So that's just something I definitely want to throw in there. We thrive off of questions and concerns from the community, all communities.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, and what we're doing right now, as we go into the next topic, we want to give the audience a chance to call in, voice their concerns, ask questions, or anything. I know Teresa said she had a question, but you can type it in the chat, or if you want to call the number that we got on the screen here, we'll take the call. The number is 972-591-8032. If you got a question or comment, please call us. But again, while we wait on that, we'll address a couple other comments that's been going on. So here's from a user. He says, we have to show up. Most people don't even CRT.
Critical race theory.
Oh, yeah. And Fix News is
giving out false information. The new Fox News. So basically what he's saying is critical race theory is the new Fox News. And he's right. What Fox News is doing is, they're utilizing and they're finding something to latch on to so that they can continue to cause discourse among Americans. So what they're saying is, let's push this critical race theory is making our kids this, and it's teaching them not to like themselves and care about who they are. And those are the topics that get certain supporters of certain, communities upset. And so they think, oh, you're teaching our children it's not right to be white. And it's like, no, that's not what we're teaching. This is history. So there is a Black author out here that's had a lot of his books pulled from the shelves because they say that it pertains to critical race theory when it's actually fictional. And it's just about a young Black boy learning to maneuver through life. Yeah. So this is what we're dealing with. democracy has become so broken that we are having to nitpick on things like books.
Yeah, good point. Good point. So here's a question from Teresa. She says, "Do you feel that racism has gotten worse over the years?" And I'll let someone start off because
Tanya, please
I
take
own this
that
one
one.
right here.
You know, my take on it, I don't feel that racism has gotten worse. It's just getting more exposure. The energy of hate is still there and it is transferable. And because we have so many avenues to see and to hear, it is spreading like wildfire. So
Yeah.
the energy of racism has been there. It's been there since the Egyptian times when they were building pyramids and things like that. But no, it's the exposure of it is more apparent these days.
I'll say this. I'll say that racism isn't getting worse, but it does need to get it. It's still an issue that we still need to work on, and it still needs to get better. And it does exist, and it is real. Because I think that if we were to say that racism is worse now than it was 50 years ago, 60 years ago, 100 years ago, to me, that would be disrespectful to the people who endured what they endured then and fought so that we have the ability to do what we do now. Because I mean, no matter what you say and how bad things are, the fact that you can go and drink at any water fountain you want to right now, as opposed to our grandmother who couldn't. There are people that we can look in the eye right now to
Well,
this
those
day.
are small liberties that any man should have.
Well,
So,
we say should, but they didn't, and they
Right.
fought for those those civil rights. Civil
Yeah.
rights are basic rights that every human should have. They had to fight for basic rights that every human should have. And then if we take it a step further than that, 150 years ago, 200 years ago, like the fact that we're not slaves right now because people fought and endured so that we don't have to. So again, it would be disrespectful to say things are worse now than they were 50 years ago or 100 years ago or whatever the case may be. No, they're not worse. Things have gotten better, but they are not perfect, and it's still bad. Just because it's not as bad, just because something is not as bad doesn't mean that it's not bad.
right.
It's kind of like
Exactly.
an abusive relationship because
Right.
one person used to hit you and now the other person pushes you or are verbally abusive. You can't say this relationship isn't bad because the other
Yeah.
person did worse. It's still bad.
Yeah,
Right.
I give us something else to think about. I think that life happens in waves, and that whole question if it's better or not or worse. I'm gonna come back to my call because we got a caller calling in, so I'm gonna take this call for us. And
press 1 to send a voicemail.
that's a little different. So we got a caller. Can you state your name and where you're calling from?
This is Teresa calling from Texarkana, Arkansas.
Hello, Teresa.
Hi,
There you go.
Teresa. Thank you for joining us.
Hey, you guys. I called to put my 2 cents in. So, this is how I really feel is that we are doing a lot of talking, but we need to do more action. We need to get out. We need to be at these meetings. We need to vote people in that we need voted in. People like Steve Bannon and Trump is still behind the scenes. And truthfully, what they're trying to do is change the very construct of everything that has been built up over the years and take away civil liberties and rights and put us back in Jim Crow. And if we're not careful, that's what's going to happen. Because while we're sitting up talking about issues, if you really look at, listen to different podcasts and different shows and listen to these Senate hearings and different hearings and things that's going on, if you sit and watch, they are systematically trying to strip away everything little by little while we're just talking and complaining and not getting out of there in the grassroots and getting things done.
Yeah.
That's my opinion.
Ask her, can I ask her a question?
Yeah.
Ask her how she feels the Kyle Rittenhouse, if she has covered or watched any of the proceedings, how she feels like, what does she think the outcome could possibly be?
the way I see this outcome coming is I see it being a mistrial because the judge is so out of order. There's so many things that have been done to basically, I mean, even his crime spell, he looked at the judge for the judge to stop it, and the judge stopped it. The judge is actually treating this case like this is personal to him. This is his son. So I do believe that in the end it's going to be a mistrial, and it's going to have to go back to trial again, and they're going to recuse the judge and everything. I believe that's what's going to happen.
James, what do you think about that?
Well, that's actually a good transition because I wanted to ask you guys, like, I wanted to talk about justice versus reality, right? And the first thing I want to do is let's talk about a few of the facts of the cases, and then based off those facts, I want to know what you guys think should happen, and then what do you think will happen. So let's start with the Arbery case, right? The owner of that property never asked for these righteous, let me not use the derogatory term, the perpetrators to secure or attempt to secure their property. And also the owner may mention that multiple people, just like you said earlier, walked into the vacant home to look around, and that guy, Ahmad had been in there multiple times and never took anything. In my mind, I'm thinking he's trying to see the progress of how the construction is going. That's what I personally believe, because I think some people are just interested in things like that. But multiple people went into that property, including one of the suspects who went into that property earlier because he said that he was pursuing somebody he was looking for somebody that had stolen something or something like that. So based on that and any facts that you guys want to share, what do you think should happen in this case, and what do you think will happen? And I'll throw it back to you, Angela.
I think that the mere fact that we are still pending a mistrial, so the judge is not there. There was a requested mistrial, but that mistrial is still pending. I think that for the judge is an ace in the hole. I think that if he sees that things might not go his way, you know how you call timeout during the game in order to stop the play, right? So I think that this could be something where if they get some information they're privy to, or if it's deadlocked, I think that they could order a mistrial. And he has not taken it off, but he has ruled on let me not get my cases mixed up. But as far as Ahmaud Arbery is concerned, I think that in this case, I think that the judge is probably a better judge than the judge in Kyle Rittenhouse case. So I think that he does want justice in Ahmaud Arbery's case.
And
I think that.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I think that no. Ask the question. Go ahead.
And just for clarification, in the Arbery case, the defense attorney requested for a mistrial because of the mother's crying in court and saying that they're trying to play on the emotions of the jurors.
Yeah, that it could.
And the judge did, and in that judge's defense, he did call him out on that.
Yeah. He did.
He called it reprehensible.
And the Kyle Rittenhouse case, there was a mistrial that was still pending that the judge has not. I think that when she said the Kyle Rittenhouse, exactly. So I think that might be an ace in the hole. So I just tied two cases in. I didn't let you know when I separated them. But at the end of the day, I do think that we probably are working with a better judge, even though there are some things that he did let slide. And I feel like at the end of the day, when it comes to that case, I personally see conviction. I think that they lose the right to say that they stand your ground. I know that even though Brian Kemp is who he is, he did in July set up legislation that does not allow people to stop that are citizen arrests. He's changed some of the laws on citizens arrest, and I think that happened in July. So,
Yeah. And here's another comment.
I think in Ahmaud's case, I think they will be found guilty. Me too. I don't know how much time they'll get.
Yeah, that's always a case that we got to consider. A guilty verdict doesn't mean that is true justice. So, and there's a discussion to be had on whether there's any such thing as justice after someone is locked
I
up.
hate to make a definition, make a claim on how I think a trial's going to go, but I do think that Rittenhouse has a possibility of being let go.
What about you, Tanya? What do you think about the Rittenhouse case?
I'm going to speak it into existence. I think we're going to get justice. He's going to be found guilty, and it's going to be case closed. I'm just going to wheel that out there.
I'm going to be honest with you. What do I think should happen? I think that unpopular opinion, I think that based on the facts that have been presented, or not the facts, the way that the cases have been presented,
right?
The way that the cases have been presented, I honestly feel that the prosecution in the Rittenhouse case didn't do the best job. And I feel that, like with him going back and forth with the judge, like not taking proper procedures and protocols to to present things that could potentially lead to a mistrial. I think that in this case, I think that he will be found not guilty, or it will be a mistrial. And that's what I think will happen. And honestly, based off the way that it's done, I think that's what should happen, even though that's not what Rittenhouse deserves. And I hate to be like this, but I feel like if an injustice takes place in that case, I hope that that's a battle cry for people in that area to step up, to change the laws. I mean, just think like regardless of how long a rifle is, that one little factor shouldn't be what allowed him to dismiss a 16-year-old kid having a gun. I also think that what's his name? Dominic Black or whatever, the boyfriend or whoever was the guy who gave him the gun. I think that he should be
I think that his mom should too. His mom should be held accountable too. There are laws that are set up right now that if your child does not go to school for a certain amount of time, they are coming for the parent. Well, then why not that? How can that not transcend to guns?
Yeah.
If you're allowing your child under the age of 18 to walk around with a gun and then he causes bodily harm, you too, the civil lawsuit alone should in the Kyle Rittenhouse trial should.
It can, but it just shows you that it's the responsibility of the district attorney to bring up those charges. And
now, does anybody know, like you said, does anybody know that if it is a mistrial, whether or not they can petition for a new judge in the new state of area? So they could say, okay, well, let's not have it in Kenosha. Let's have it here, and let's choose a new judge. Does anybody know how that works?
I don't.
Not technically, no, but I know that it can be requested.
Yes, it can be requested. So I agree with you, James. I hope that there is a mistrial, because then we can go back and we can pick a new set of jurors. Did anybody know that Kyle was able to pick the second-hand jurors out of a freaking bowl?
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah. And he said he'd been doing that for 20 years. And I'm just like, the optics of that, I don't care how long you've been doing it. It just shows just lack of discretion amongst the people that are elected leaders. And, well, I'm not even going to get into that.
Ultimately in the Rittenhouse case, I think what's so messed up is the fact that he said on the stand that he knew that, what's the guy's name, that one of the people that he killed, Joshua, he knew that the person was unarmed. So you knew, like, he verbally stated that he knew that man was unarmed, and he still used lethal force because of the potential threat. Well, he could have taken my gun.
Yeah. But let
me ask you this, James. What about, don't you think that the EMT, don't you think his testimony was damning? Because he had a rifle, he had a gun in his back pocket. He still got shot in the arm. And he said on the stand, they said, after you got shot, why didn't you pull your gun and shoot Rittenhouse? And he was like, that's just not who I am.
Yeah.
And he had paramedic on his hat, and he shot him.
Yeah,
his testimony was damning.
I think it would be if it was in other circumstances, but we got a judge who's real life protecting Rittenhouse like it's his own son. Like it's like somebody said it was personal, and I really believe.
This just has George Zimmerman vibes. Written all over it again.
That's a great one.
I was thinking the exact same thing.
Yeah, cool. Well, man, it's been a good discussion. We running short on time. We can keep this going, another 30 minutes or an hour, but we're going to play some fun trivia, and it's just to bring a lighter note to the show. So I'm going to ask y'all some questions, and at the end, whoever out of you three, whoever win this trivia, I got you before to pick a nonprofit or another organization or even a family that you want to donate $100 to. So what we do, I'm going to start off asking you a series of questions, and the first person to answer is the winner, and we'll go to the next one. So we're going to keep tally. Let me get my pen here. And first question. Who was the 44th First Lady?
Michelle Obama.
What? I didn't hear it.
Michelle Obama.
You did.
James said he's taking no prisoners.
I'm doing this for the nonprofit starting with today.
That was not fair. Okay, go ahead.
No problem. Okay, so let me slow it down a little bit. So James won. Okay. The next question. Who was the first Black Secretary of State?
Condoleezza Rice.
I think James wrote the questions.
No.
I mean,
is that right? I thought it was Colin Powell.
He said
Dang.
You said female? Did you say female?
I said first Black.
Oh, then it is Colin Powell.
And I told the answer. I should have said no, that wasn't it.
Colin Powell.
That point goes to Angel.
Yeah, okay. All right.
No, it can go to you because I don't have an organization. So I want the
It
organization.
could be a family or something.
If I win anything, I'm going to give it to my girl.
Okay. So
I thought we would donate it to someone else too,
Yeah. All right. What diet eliminates or reduces carb intake?
Keto.
James
All
killing it, man. Okay.
All of them.
Atkins. That's you can't say it's Atkins does too.
Okay,
The
so
great
that's two.
Yeah.
So
Atkins.
y'all all got one. Okay.
No, she has two.
I'm just saying from that one right there.
Oh, we have girl power going. Let's go.
Here it is. What's the number one killer of Black women? And don't say stress from Black men.
Cancer. Breast cancer.
No.
Diabetes.
Heart disease.
Birth.
James,
That's men
Diabetes.
too. Ooh, that's a good one.
what did you say? Okay, so that was the next question. So what's the number one killer for
Cancer.
Black men?
Heart disease.
Heart disease.
Okay.
I already got that one. So she's got what, 4 now? So she's one head.
No, you're gonna win, and then you can donate it if you want, but you got three.
I've donated them. I'm donating them all to
You can
her.
donate the money.
Wait, how many questions? How many do I have right?
You
3 or
got
4?
three too. You got three. You got three. Angelina got three. Tanya got one.
So Tanya has 4.
No, that's not. You can't change the rules of the game.
Yes, I can.
You can give the money away if you want, but listen. Okay, so here's the next question. What state has the most professional sports teams?
California.
The Lakers. California. I mean the Lakers.
James.
But
The Lakers is not a state.
I know,
We're
right?
in California. That point goes to me.
That question was for you, Tanya. I just knew you
I
was going to
said
get that one.
California. I think it's a
The
delay.
Lakers are everything. No,
Sports team.
No,
All
not
right,
right
the
now.
Lakers are California.
now we're about to check your intellect. See what you know. How many tennis championships does Serena Williams have?
18.
20.
21.
18.
Who's the closest? 32.
22. 21.
28.
21, go up.
24.
23.
Tanya, 23.
Yay!
But she cheering for Tanya, not James. Hey, listen.
She
All right.
got my vote.
23.
All right, so we got two more
Wait, you said, are you talking about Grand Slams?
titles in general, total. Yeah. Make sure to Google. Okay, I just Googled, man. I don't know who, what, when, where, and why. All right, name 3 civil rights activists other than MLK.
Medgar Evers, Fred Hampton, Angela
Jesse
Davis.
Jackson, and Obama.
I just named 3.
James killing it. All right. So this is going to take us out to the championship right here.
I've already won. If it's only one more question, I won.
Man, you don't know this tally? Check this out. What year?
I just got 2 in a row when we were tied. If
Hey.
you get one more, I win.
What year did this podcast begin?
2019.
2018.
Angela, 2019. All right. So the tally is, let me
So
see.
Tanya wins.
James. James won. So James, you get the pick.
And I got double teamed.
Yeah.
That's right.
Hey, so James, you get to pick a nonprofit or a family or organization.
I'm picking a nonprofit based out of Washington, D.C. called Starting With Today. They do community activism to help people in that community. So I'm gonna do Starting With Today.
Starting With Today.
Starting
All
with
right.
today.
Cool. So the other part about this is that you get to pay the $100 yourself, man. I got it.
When you cash out me,
Yeah.
AF, I'll send it right over.
Right on, man. That was good, man. So, hey, I'm just take a moment before we close out to let Ladybug explain why it's important that we give back, as an organization.
Basically, if we are going to see our communities thrive, we need to make sure that we are the boots on the ground. I think someone mentioned that before in the comments. I think that it helps build pride in our communities. I think that people feel more involved. It creates a safety, knowing your neighbors is okay. Some people grow up in the same towns forever, but somewhere along the lines, they don't see where there's a necessity or a need to build. So I think that it's important that together we build. I think we reach out to other communities that are not inside of our communities and share our four plans on how we're building. And I think that the only way we do that is by platforms like this.
Yeah.
I think that it's important that we find out about our culture and who we are. I'm going to quickly say a couple of books that I'm reading. One of them is The African American Century. It's Henry Louis Gates and Cornel West. This is a really great book. And this book basically goes through and it talks to us about how Blacks have shaped this country. So this would probably be considered a critical race theory book, but it's been around for a while. And it's a really great book. I mean, it's going to teach everyone some things that they did not know about themselves and their communities. And then there's a lot of history in these books about communities that we live in today that no one talks about. And then another book that I'm reading for inspiration is this great book, Will. It came out on the 9th of this month. It's by Will Smith. And I think that I cracked it open a little bit, and I think he has some really dope stuff to share about his life and his struggle as just a man in Hollywood. I know he's got a lot of tours that are going on right now, but I suggest anybody that's looking for something that's a little lighter than something like this to reach out and support Will Smith, the funny man.
Yeah,
those are the books I recommend.
Okay, who's up now?
All right. Let's see. Well, it's time to wrap up the show, and as we always do when we're wrapping up, we'll go to parting thoughts. I'll start with Tranquil T.
One thing I took away from this particular podcast is if we are not present in taking up space, how do we gain respect? So be present so we can gain that respect we need in order to make a difference.
Yeah, that's good.
I like that.
All right, Angela.
I think Tranquil T said it. She said exactly what I felt, and I second that emotion. I feel like, let's create more spaces, and let's create a greater understanding, and let's reach one, teach one.
Yeah.
All right, and Flex, what you got?
Yeah, I like that one by being present too. One of the guests earlier talked about how important it is for grassroots organizations to be involved in doing the legwork right there in the community, and that happens because we're present. And, there's powers in numbers, but it doesn't have to be a ton of people. It can be each individual showing up doing their part. Right here in the town of Little Elm, they're having local elections for city councilmen or councilwomen, whoever running. But I can tell you there's been no less than 10 times over the last 2 months that my door has been knocked on. And people, some of the times it was the same guy coming by just like, hey, it's not just a regular election, now it's a runoff. So
Right.
each person can individually do their part to help push us to greatness. That old saying that every vote count is real,
It
especially
is.
in local election when people are literally losing by 10 and 12 votes, so I just encourage
And
everybody
I'm
to do
glad
their
you
part.
said that.
Mhm.
When in December we're going to have a young woman who's a part of the Special Olympics. She's going to come in, talk to us, and tell us her story. If I would have won today, I'd have provided us with her Cash App, but we'll have an opportunity to do that when she comes on the show. Um, and um, and that's another thing about us being a part of community, pulling stories out like this and hers. Her voice needs to be heard.
Yeah,
She's been abused by the system. So, I mean, we keep pulling out these stories and, we keep our boots on the ground and we be present.
yeah, just there. Yeah.
Okay. And Flex, share with us some of the upcoming shows we got coming up.
Oh yeah. So we're trying to keep a little bit for everybody out there. So man, good. We back here with you all on Greenwood the podcast. And we'll do 2 to 3 shows a month. The days of the week are vary depending on the topic and the guests that we have and their availability. But man, the professor has been back and he's been doing a lot. So if y'all haven't been watching what he's been doing, you're missing out. He has Ask the Professor show that alternates on Tuesdays with some of the other shows. He's a part of Late Night Education with him and TJ the Realist and Zoe. So, man, they're doing great things. So be a part of that show and listen in and participate. You got the Love and Relationship show. We'll be back on not this coming Sunday, but the following Sunday. So that's always fun. We're talking about some of the things dealing with relationships. And, we're recruiting. I almost forgot to say this. We're
Oh,
recruiting
yeah,
for
the
a dope
culture.
show called The Culture. So if y'all know some young talent out there, we're looking for people in between the ages of 20 to maybe 33, 34 to talk about hot topics. Yeah, that's you. That's you, Tranquil T. Hot topics, current events, things of that nature. So again, we want to reach multiple people, expand our touch, and reach into the community. So if you know people that will be interested in joining the podcast, reach out to us. And to all our followers who's always sharing, and I plugged my cousin Doris Ware in before, but again, she is faithfully tuning in, sharing shows, participating in the contest. She won a air fryer, and I was going to
Oh,
mail, I was going to mail you air fryer, Doris. I know you're watching right now. I'll see you on Thanksgiving, and I'll bring it down there
thank
to
you to
you
our
then.
caller, too, that called in. Thank you so much for
Oh
our
yeah,
caller
Teresa.
that called in.
Yeah.
Teresa Page.
No, that wasn't Teresa Page. That was a different Teresa down in Texarkana.
Oh, well, I thought it was the Teresa Page.
Yeah.
All right. Angelia, can you mention those social media platforms again?
TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn. LinkedIn.
LinkedIn.
And this is why we want everybody to make sure they have a LinkedIn, because there's a lot of information that's being shared there.
Yeah.
Companies, networks, nonprofits. It's also a platform for you to make sure that you're noticed and you're seen by people. And we try to update as much as possible. And so if you ever have show ideas, please hit us on the Facebook forum. We're always readily there. If there's something that's happening in the community or your community, hit us up there as well. Ashton Smith is the Olympic swimmer that I was speaking of, and we'll have her in the show in December. So we're kind of cranking them out. We've got some officials that we're going to have on, and of course James is going to come on here and shine. If we can have Tranquil T every time, I know she's a busy lady, and I Must is very important. And please go out to her page if you're connected with her, or find one of us and find out more about I Must. There are, and it is a positive platform. And if that is where you are in a space that you want to be, please link up with I Must.
Yeah. Tanya, if you want to take a minute to talk about I Must,
please.
20 seconds.
I Must.
That ain't enough, but we're going to take it.
We're going to So I Must is my baby. I Must is a sworn obligation and a commitment to oneself to rise above. Sometimes we it's hard to be encouraged, but you have to affirm your own greatness, your own willpower, and defy the odds, conquer fears, and get things going, and set yourself in a motion that you're proud of for yourself. You have your own measure of success, peace, what have you. You decide that, but it starts with a made up mind, and it starts with saying I must. So.
Yeah.
Mm.
So if you're following all the page platforms, I'm sharing her stuff on there all the time. So follow I must,
I
man.
appreciate
I
that.
really
Thank you.
believe what she's doing. And T Will, I almost forgot about educate and motivate. He'll be
Educate and
back.
motivate.
Yeah,
Yeah.
not this Wednesday, but the following Wednesday, where he's talking about credit, financial literacy, home buying, and a number of other topics too. So again, we're just trying to touch, a lot of people in a lot of different areas. Not sexually or anything that came out kind of bad.
But again, please, if you know young people, we gave you the ages. We are looking for young and bright talent for the culture.
Yeah.
And the culture is going to talk about those things. Like everybody's all about the baby stuff right now, and that's really big. And the culture will talk about that and the fascination with pop culture. When of course we should be talking about things like the Aubrey trials and stuff like that. So there's something there on the Floor Is Your podcast for everybody in every age. And I think that we can spread more words and we can spread more information, through these different platforms in the podcast. James, thank you for always coming in and being a light on no matter what stage and podcast you are on.
I appreciate it. And I definitely enjoyed myself. Did you guys have a good time?
We had a good
Absolutely.
time. So
I did. I really did.
so we're tasked for you. We're tasking you to come up with the next topic.
We'll see. But definitely, this is definitely entertaining. This is definitely enjoyable.
Oh, real fast. That was a code switching comment.
This was definitely a very intriguing, engaging conversation. Greenwood, the podcast, the number one place to go to for politics, news, current events, the real. Again, I enjoyed myself. Thanks for having me on. Appreciate it. I think that's about it, though. Flicks, hit us with the outro.
I got a show that's coming from IC. She said, don't let them suck you over. Man, we got him. He hooked.
Hey, the Floor Is Yours podcast for life, right? I see.
Hey, I appreciate y'all, man. We'll see y'all all next time.